Today's Monday, the 12th day of April, 2021, and this is a regularly scheduled workshop meeting. First order of business is roll call. Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Present.
Mr. Manley,
Here.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Here.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Here,
Excuse
Everybody-
a second, Joe. Did you say the 12th of April? It's the 26th
Oh,
of
the
April.
26th day of April.
Okay.
Thank you. Everybody, please stand for this Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
allegiance to
To
the
the
flag
Flag
of
of
the
of the
United
United States of
America.
America,
and to the
and
and to the
republic
republic
for which
which
it
it
stands, one
one
nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice
justice.
for all.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor, any changes to the agenda?
Yes. Number 8 is going to come off for tonight totally. Number
Okay.
10, C and D are coming off. And we're going to add an 18B, and that'll be start the process to hire a part-time custodial worker.
Okay, any other changes? Okay, guess not. Next, we'll go to the approval of the audit.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the audit in the amount of $2,049,373.77. If someone wants to make that motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 6 for a resolution, 2021 water rate for Air National Guard.
So this resolution really sets the water rate for 2021 for the Air National Guard. So does someone want to make a motion to approve this resolution establishing water rates for the Air National Guard for the year 2021?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second your motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to 7 for Code Compliance Department. The first item A, approval to hire part-time fire inspector.
All right, so Jerry Canfield has requested, and Charlene Black has written it up. So this is to replace Charlie Piper, who is our part-time inspector and has retired recently. So this will be Corey Debetsky, who has no relation to the Debetsky who worked for the town for many years.
Huh. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, no relation. This will be an hourly rate of $20.50 with a starting date is as soon as possible. So that's be the first Monday after we can get the background and physical and all done. So someone want to make that motion?
I'll make
I'll
the
make the
motion.
motion.
But also I'd like put in the record that he is a graduate. We have a certificate here from the fire inspection school. And I think that speaks very well of him.
Very good.
Okay, Councilwoman Green made a motion. May I have a
Yes.
second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item B, also for code compliance. This is introductory local law 2 of 2021. That's a temporary outdoor dining permit.
All right, so here, Mark Taylor, I guess you can give us a real short rundown, if you could, please. Go ahead.
I am muted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Last year, when the governor prohibited indoor dining as part of his emergency orders, but allowed outdoor dining. The supervisor issued emergencies orders which allowed restaurants and other establishments in the town which had indoor seating to basically set up outdoor dining. That vehicle is not the best one in that the supervisor has to repeatedly issue emergency orders allowing outdoor dining, which would otherwise be subject to site plan and other zoning approvals in order for it to be established. This local law would, for calendar year 2021, allow outdoor dining for all those establishments that have indoor seating to assist in their economic recovery and to address the continuing restrictions, which are now, I believe, at 75% on indoor dining. Would establish a temporary permit system administered by the Code Compliance Department and basically set forth some rules with respect to what needs to be submitted and shown as far as not impeding traffic circulation and emergency access, and allow those permits to stay in place through the calendar year without necessity of any sort of administrative action on behalf of the town other than the issuance of the permit.
Right, Mark, very good. So we will look this over and maybe another meeting, set the public hearing for it. So we'll bring this back again. Thank you. Now we can move on to 9. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Supervisor, I did include a resolution with the board's package just to provide for the introduction and the referral of the local law to Orange County Planning and the Planning Department. That is a 30-day process, so I thought maybe perhaps the board would at least undertake that process to get the ball rolling.
All right, someone want to make that motion then tonight?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes,
Okay, item 8 has been removed, so next we go on to item 9 for the town clerk's office. Approval to purchase document management software.
all right. I know the clerk and the people in his office really want to put this in place, and this would be able to scan many documents that we have in records. And this would be a cost of $330 a month for this software from Trino. And that would be over 5 years. So it's more of a software license than anything that we're dealing with here. So someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second your motion.
I'm sorry, who made that motion, please?
I did, sir.
And Councilwoman Green seconded. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
And next we go on to item 10. The first item, A, is approval to award bids for summer material.
All right. So on this one here, and there's a lot of prices and all to look at, but if you want to make a motion on 10A to approve these as is, as far as the recommendation of the highway superintendent.
I'll make the
We need
motion.
a- Okay, thank you.
I'll second it as presented.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item B for the Highway Department. Approval to award bid for cold milling.
Okay, again, do we want to, having looked this over, just approve it as presented, the highway superintendent's recommendations on this cold filling machine?
I'll make the motion. We go as presented.
I'll
I'll
second your
second the
motion.
motion.
Go ahead.
Councilwoman Green made the second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Okay, item 10C has been removed. Item 10D has been removed. Next, we go on to item 11 for animal control, T94 withdrawal. The first one for Flannery Animal Hospital.
So Tracy Carvel has asked that we have a motion to expend $97.05 from the T94 donation account to the Flannery Animal Hospital. Someone make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item B for animal control, Newburgh Veterinary Hospital.
All right, so here Tracy Carvel, our animal control officer, is asking for a motion to expend $1,019.06 from the T94 donation account that we going to Newburgh Veterinarian Hospital. Someone want to make that motion?
so move.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 12 for the Recreation Department. First, item A, approval to extend senior transportation agreement.
All right, so here, this is a resolution to extend the Orange County Transportation Services. So we're just looking for a motion to do that.
so move.
Second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Then we go on to item B, also for the Recreation Department. Approval to enter into the 2021 service agreement for the Orange County Umpires Association.
Right, so here it looks like there'll be 2 officials per game. They get $32 each per game for slow pitch. So the motion is to approve the OCUSSSA umpire service agreement for the year 2021.
so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 13 for the Water Sewer Department. Approval to start process to hire wastewater maintenance worker.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to start the process to hire a wastewater maintenance worker. And this was, if you remember, we had a retirement there a number of months ago. We're filling
I'll
that
make the
position.
motion.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 14 for the Engineering Department. The first item, there will be a budget transfer.
All right, so here I'm asking for a transfer of $25,000 to the engineering department. It's going to come from account A 1990.5499, and it's going to go to A 1440.5100. And it just seems with the payroll as it continues there through the year, we may be a little short, so this will more than cover it. So I want to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Item B, also for the record, for engineering. Request to solicit bids for seasonal grounds maintenance for stormwater management facilities.
So moved.
Okay, just a second now, Betty, if you would
Okay.
appreciate it, but, okay, so 14B, and this is to start the process. This will be the advertisement of the bids, and this is for the maintenance on the stormwater management facilities that we have around town. Okay, I'm sorry, Betty, go ahead. You made your motion?
So moved.
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
Councilman Lobiondo seconded. Any discussion?
Actually, I think that was Paul
Oh, that was Paul.
Girio who seconded it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
And then we move on to item C for engineering. Chadwick Lake Dam Engineering Assessment.
So our last assessment on the dam was in 2013, and it's time to have it looked at again. And that's at a cost of $24,100. And we secured a price from Ramboll Engineering, which is formerly O'Brien and Gear. So we're looking for a motion to hire Ramboll Engineering for the
I'll
Chadwick
make
Lake
that
Dam
motion.
engineering easement not to exceed $24,100.
I'll make that motion not to exceed $24,100.
I'll second your motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Then we move on to item 15, a resolution, New York State Retirement System for Councilmen.
All right, so this, anytime an elected official is appointed, or an elected official is elected, and we must send that report to the retirement system based on how many hours that person works. So this resolution tonight, it's really for Anthony Lobiondo, so perhaps Anthony will abstain from the vote. So, and the actual 12.20 is what it comes down to as far as the retirement system goes on a breakdown weekly, which is based on an average of 30 hours. So we will vote on this resolution tonight. It'll be put on the webpage and posted at Town Hall for 30 days. And then the town clerk will sign that it's been posted. We send it to the retirement system. So someone want to make that motion? Approve as presented.
So moved.
I'll
I'll
second.
second. Hey, Scott.
Motion seconded by Councilman Manley. Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Abstain.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 16 for the accounting department, the budget transfer.
All right, so here we have a transfer of $25,000, and this is being done for the part-timers at the Desmond property. This is not new money going into the budget. This is a transfer. So it's going to be from account A 7520.5499 to A 7520.5100 in the amount of $25,000. Does someone want to make that motion?
I'll
I'll
make,
make-
the motion.
Go ahead, Anthony.
That was myself, Councilman
Oh,
Manley.
sorry. I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Councilman Lobiondo?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 17, home rule request, a local law involving hotel room occupancy tax.
All right, again, on this one, this is, as we call it, our hotel motel tax. We tried for many years. Senator Skoufis actually helped us get it through in Albany, and we actually have it. Now we have to implement the local law. But Mark, can you just give us a little rundown real quick too, please?
Sure. As Gil indicated, the governor signed legislation that allows the town to impose a hotel occupancy tax on hotels, motels, and other businesses which engage in the rental of rooms on a per diem basis and don't involve permanent occupancy. This local law would implement what the state has now allowed in the town and would impose a 5% hotel occupancy tax on the revenues that are collected from occupants. The burden of collection is placed on operators, which could, in today's world, include the owners. The operators, frequently hotels, are subject to a hotel operators agreement wherein a separate entity operates the hotel or motel and collects the money and then turns over what's left over to the owner. Or in cases now, we have online platforms such as Airbnb, which collect the monies and then turn them over. So this provides for those entities to actually collect and pay over the tax to the town. There's a reporting system established. There's the opportunity for the town to go and inspect the books and records, and there are provisions for appeals and penalties. It's a fairly lengthy and complicated enactment, given all the ins and outs that are necessary to administer this type of system. So not asking the board to act tonight, but to review the proposal and to, if you have questions, we'll address them as they arise.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay,
So,
next we go on to item 18 for buildings and grounds. The first item, A, approval to start process to hire skilled laborer.
Okay, so here we're just looking for a motion to start the process to hire a part-time skilled laborer. So I want to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Then we go to the next item B, which was added this evening. Approval to start process to hire part-time custodian.
All right, so once again, it's the same thing. We're just starting the process to hire a part-time custodial worker. Someone want to make that motion?
so move.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 19, which is adjournment.
All right, someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll
I'll make the motion.
Not sure who that was that time, Joe.
That was Councilman Manley. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn the workshop meeting at 7:23 PM. Mrs. Green,
yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes, and good night from the town of Newburgh. I always wanted to say that.
Good night.
Oh,
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, John Boy.